Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress video. Yeah, I wasn't sure. Look how terrible my nails look. I used this really old nail polish and it was just too goopy. So it did not do well with my top coat. Anyway, whatever. I wanted to do, you can see what the title of this video is. Hey, guess what, guys? I finished my last journal, and this is the one that I'm going to be starting. This was given to me by my mom. I don't know if this is real leather. It probably is, but I think she's had it for like decades. It was still like in a little plastic wrapper and everything. She gave it to me, and I put this Abigail Larson sticker on it with the little bat. Weedle bat. I love it. So this is my new journal that I'm starting. My last journal I just finished. I started in January, so about half the year. Okay. I wanted to do another. I got out yesterday. I had kind of a dark day, and I realized that, and I was getting out different tarot decks to work with, because I was feeling, burpy, using, drinking Beach Plum LaCroix right now. If you hear any explosions in the background, it's not because I'm under attack. It's because it's the 4th of July and I live in America. Oh, I hate the 4th of July. Anyway, so I was feeling this sort of like, I don't know, like generalized misogyny that I haven't felt in a while. It's like we took some steps forward in the 2010s, I feel, and now with everything that's going on, I'm feeling a little bit of a sense of foreboding. And so I was sitting down using different tarot decks, trying to decide what I wanted to use. Check out this amazing bag that Wendy from Occult Compass made for me. And so I was getting out different decks, like, what do I want to use right now? What's going to answer this question for me? And I was getting out different things and nothing was working. But what worked was Ludy Lescot, because this is the most, the imagery in this deck really deals with, in my opinion, deals with domestic abuse towards women, violence towards women in general, rape, just dealing with the sort of the kind of begrudging acquiescence to men that women in a society where we are less than on the social hierarchy have to do. We have to begrudgingly acquiesce so that we will be treated fairly. Not so that we'll be treated fairly, but so that we'll be treated, so that we can slip under the radar and just get by. You know, that sort of survival mentality of a woman in a situation where she's not being treated as an equal. That is what this deck really conveys, and it is upsetting, and I previously have thought of this deck as sort of a relic, but now I'm seeing it a relic of a time that we are moving through, that we're moving beyond. And overall, I do think that we're moving beyond this, but we've definitely taken a step back, what feels like a huge step back, because, yeah, anyway. So I just wanted to do, like, I've been really going deeper with decks lately, or I've been noticing more symbolism within them than I used to, or something like that. And so I wanted to show you what I noticed last night. Okay, so we'll start with the aces. So, to me, this deck also, not only is it dealing with, violence towards women? Is it dealing with that begrudging acquiescence, as I call it, towards men? But it also implies, and this is all just my interpretations of the symbolism based on the imagery and what the imagery makes me feel, by the way, because this is a knockoff. I don't have the guidebook. Plus the guidebook's just like a sentence or two for each image anyway. So this is all just my interpretations based on my own personal interpretations based on looking at the imagery. So I'm going to say it as if it's fact to a certain extent, but of course you might interpret it differently. What I see here in the aces, in almost every case here except for the Ace of Swords, we see what is likely a man hand offering something to each of these women, right? And these women are wearing masks, and these women look like they're in charge of their own reality to me. And that is not something you see often in this deck. So what I'm seeing here is have you guys heard of this? Probably you have. Concept of soul contracts, where before you're even born, you make an agreement with all of the people in your life that you're going to encounter and what kind of relationship you're going to have with those people. And it, to a certain extent, it implies it's a little bit of victim blaming mentality I mean, it can be viewed that way, but a lot of people view it as people that have gone through trauma use this narrative. Some use this narrative to be able to feel more at peace with what they've gone through. Like, oh, I agreed to this. It's like somehow introducing consent into abusive relationships. So if it's if it makes you feel better, do it, definitely. But also it can be very harmful to tell someone that as if it's fact, if that's not something that's going to be helpful for their own healing, you know what I mean? And it's a very difficult concept to reconcile for me personally. It's not the way that I see it, but it's the way this deck sees it. I see this moment in the aces here as that soul contract. So these women are choosing this reality, the reality of Ludy Lescot. The reality of the world of Ludy Lescot is one of violence against women, inequality, pain. And here they all have, I view all four of these women as having their own agency. I mean, the queens in this deck don't look as self-assured as these women in the aces do. And I'm probably going to show you every single card because they're all in little categories of the different themes of the deck, according to what I was feeling last night anyway. So here is like the beginning of the deck. I see this as sort of the thesis and the mission statement is these women are going into this life knowing what they're choosing and choosing it anyway. That's what I see is happening here. And next, what is the next category? Okay. These are all just the cards that to me didn't necessarily have a category. Like for instance, this Hierophant just being a pope, it means nothing to me. This is just kind of a more typical situation. Here, the Six of Wands. What I see here is more of the soul contract shit to a certain extent. And also just, do you see how on the wall we have the these portraits, to me, they all look like men. So these are the men of the family, like 3 generations maybe. Like this is probably like her little brother, and this is her older brother, or maybe her dad, and that's her grandpa or something. So I'm seeing this as sort of a lineage wherein they get their portrait taken, they get to be king, but she has to be married off, because what I see here is her descending the stairs to meet her future, like, person that she has to acquiesce to, you know? And every single woman in this deck should be pointed out. I probably pointed it out in my last video about this, but just in case I didn't. I think it's every single card. There's like, you know, mascara and eye makeup running down the face. So these women have been crying. And again, the only time you don't see that is in the aces. And I think that's true. Let's pay attention to that, actually. Okay, no. She doesn't have... So it's very rare when you see someone without... Oh, and she doesn't. Without makeup running down their face like they've been crying. This one, I don't really know what I think of it. I haven't, like, figured out. Maybe she sought... I mean, the Temperance Angel in this case is this statue in a cemetery. So maybe she sought refuge here in the cemetery and she was still followed by men. This probably should have been in a different category, because I have a category of cards that's all men in the background. Just kind of like creepily watching over or coming toward or going away or whatever. That probably should have been in that category. I don't know how I feel about this Two of Swords. Again, we do have someone that's not got the makeup running down her face. So, it happens. Excuse me. Okay, and she doesn't either. Maybe I should make a pile of the women that do not have the makeup running down their face, because it's rare enough that I want to see it at the end, like the pile of women without the makeup running down their face. This is the only situation in the entire deck, I think, where we see a man and a woman looking like they might be considered equals, you know? Like, he doesn't look menacing and she actually looks happy and relaxed. This Judgment card, like I've said before, feels like it's from a different deck. Okay, so I wanted to show the World card because this is, I think, the first image that made me think about that whole idea of soul contracts. Like here, the man and the woman are curled up in this little egg together, and it's like it's before they reincarnate into another life or something like that, you know? It's like they're deciding in this moment what they're going to go through together in the next life, you know? So she does not have makeup running down her face, so we'll count that one. Okay, this next category of cards is a pretty big category, actually. It's a chunk of the deck. This is just men. And here, I mean, I guess we could argue that maybe she's tying him up, but it really looks like she's releasing him to me. And I showed this image to Michael last night, and I was like, what do you think is happening in this card? And he said, well, he's being released and from his ropes. And I asked him, why do you think that? Why is your interpretation that? And I was very careful to not like try to, and I was trying to use my language so that I wasn't influencing him on what I thought, you know what I mean? Why do you think he's being released and not being tied up? And he said, the first thing he said was, well, to me, that looks like a woman's arms, and a woman would save you. And I thought that was very interesting because that's exactly what I think, but I just hadn't, verbalized it in that way. So anyway, this little stack of cards is just the dudes in this deck. The knights, for the most part, look like they are here to save the women. I don't know what's going on there. This is some kind of creepy situation. I don't know. That's fine. The kings are usually pretty innocuous. The pages are usually pretty innocuous. Like the court card dudes in this deck look like they might not be entirely bad. And this emperor looks okay. This magician is like, what's happening here? I like this page, actually. He's okay. Don't like his outfit. I'm just not into this style of dress for dudes. Personally, this guy looks nefarious for sure. This is like, a mocking little child clown. Like, you will never get your childhood back. Oh. Yeah, so I don't really have much to say about these. It's just, this category was just the men in this deck. I actually like this King of Cups a lot. So I guess these are sort of the non-violent men in the deck. I mean, there's a few that I wouldn't trust, but they're not overtly awful. That's that category, the not overtly awful men in the deck category. And to be fair, that was a sizable chunk of the deck. Okay, next category is women that trying to decide where this cuts off and goes into the next section. I think it's okay. This is sort of the slightly ambiguous sadness of women category. So this is the Queen of fucking Swords. Like, she looks so dejected. But I guess technically she doesn't have makeup running down her face, so she gets to go in that category. This chick looks like, she either stole these people's baby, or because she chose to raise a child on her own, she doesn't get to have this life over here. She had to make a choice. So there's some sadness here. But again, makeup not running down the face. Here is, I don't know, this is interesting. Like, she is like, this really triggers me personally. So one of the abusive relationships that I was in, the guy would, when we were walking together somewhere, he would walk ahead of me. And like, he would walk so fast that I couldn't keep up with him, and he wouldn't slow down for me. So I always looked like I was just like this meek little girlfriend following behind him. And I hated it. And that is what I see here. Like, they're both in this crappy situation together, but he is claiming all of the sadness of the situation for himself, and he's blaming her. That's what I see here. And she definitely has the crying situation happening. And this person is longing for someone. So this category is the sort of like longing, distracted, paranoid, sad women in the deck that aren't directly, like the next category is women that have been, like, violence has been perpetrated upon them, and this is just sort of the trudgery of daily life living with men. Oh my god. Okay, so that's what that is. So she's longing for someone. Another one was just sort of like a generic longing situation, and she does have the crying face. Another just generic longing. this one, like, she has just gotten to such a breaking point that she's just going to jump off the building. That is it. And this is actually a moment of triumph and freedom for her, right before she splats, you know? Another one that to me just looks like sort of generic longing situation. Another one. And in this one, she has cut her wrists and she's bleeding out. So it's another, you know, she is sacrificing her life because of her longing. And here, this is the only time we see, the only time in the entire deck, I think, that we see a man that somebody has done violence against him. I guess you could argue that the Hanged Man was kind of that. So this and the Hanged Man are really the only time that you see. And both times, a woman is helping or a woman cares. In this situation, a woman cares. And this one, I just see someone who has just gotten married or is about to get married but doesn't want, she's being taken to her new home. She hasn't even met the guy yet and she hates it. This is almost like the continuation of that Six of Wands. Let's just get it out, because I know it was kind of at the beginning here. Yeah, to me this is the same story. Like, she's descending the stairs to be married off. She has to leave her home because she doesn't get to rule the household because she's not a man. And this is her being taken to her new home that she doesn't want to go to. But she has to, because that's the way that this world works. And it's really not that fucking different from the world that we live in, you know? And here, this is one of the most disturbing, both of these images. This is also a continuation of this storyline, right? Okay. These are all part of the same storyline, I feel. So let's just put them together. I see this all as the same storyline. And this is a deck that I really don't, for the most part, read it like a normal tarot deck. You know, when I pulled cards last night from this deck, the reading that I was doing for myself, I was mostly just looking at the imagery and translating the story that I was seeing in the imagery to the questions that I was asking, you know? And I was mostly ignoring the fact that this is the Chariot and this is the Eight of Cups. Like, if it happened to enrich my reading, then I would take it into account. But if it confused me, which sometimes the imagery in these cards does confuse me as far as like how it relates to the tarot. Like, this is not a victory at all, but it's the best that she can hope for in this life, you know? Anyway. And even though this is a Chariot going towards her future and she did make the choice, again, it's sort of a begrudging acquiescence. That is choice in this deck, is begrudging acquiescence. The only time we see choice that involves any kind of agency is back in those aces. And even that is choosing a lifetime of this, you know? Descending the stairs of her childhood home, going to her new man's home, being led up the steps after the wedding ceremony. And she doesn't, I mean, look at this guy. She has no idea what's going to befall her inside this house. And then this is her, like, she's been crying all day. And she's like, okay, we gotta do this now. I gotta have sex with you, even though I don't want this life. It's so dark. It's so dark. Okay, we'll put this back over here. Okay, so the next section of cards. Trying to think where, I'm trying to find where it cuts off. The next section of cards, this is the section of cards that is violence being done against women or has just been done. So in this scenario, she was obviously, running through the woods. Maybe this is that same woman from the last storyline. She's now been in that household for a while. She's trying to escape, but she got chased down by the king's horsemen or something. And she even had a cross with her to try to defend herself, but she didn't make it. She's got the teeth marks. She didn't make it. That guy was a vampire and he was violent. And then we have this whole section of cards where there's like a silhouette of a man in the background, and you never know, like, is that person coming to save them, or is that person running away after they have done violence against them? So we have that in this card, this card, this card. I'm counting this wolf silhouette in the background of this card as being just another example of that same thing. We also have silhouettes in this card here, but let me just turn this over just so I'm not confusing the situation. Here we have someone in the background rushing to save her. Here we have someone in the reflection of the mirror. Here we have this silhouette in the background. Here we have, this is the most upsetting example in my opinion, because what I see, as I've said before, talking about this particular card, what I see is that this woman has just been raped and the guy's walking away. And then, talking about storylines in this fucking deck, I kind of see this as a storyline to a certain extent, like how you deal with trauma. This is right after it happened. This is, the guy's much further away now, but she's still in pain. And it comes back to haunt you because trauma comes back to haunt you. So that makes sense as a Wheel of Fortune card, in my opinion. And then here we have, like, her trauma is really far in the past, but she's hiding in the attic from the guy, and she was up there so long that the reality is, in the reflection of the mirror, like, he's just going to visit her in the attic, and she's a skeleton, she's bones, she rotted away up there, So this is like when you don't get out of your trauma and you just, it's like the man that hurt her is not the same man as this man in this picture, but this person also hurt her. She chose the same type of man again, as she chose a man that would hurt her later in life after someone hurt her without her consent, She chose to go back to a situation like that. That was her choice. Oh, it's awful. It's awful. So these sort of specters of dudes in the background, that is a theme in this deck. Here we have, like, she's toiling away, doing her embroidery, and this cat is obviously defensive. That's how I see it anyway. And he's like, watching her from the shadows, making sure that she does her work. And to me, she looks pregnant as well, perhaps. So I see this as she is doing everything she can to prepare for the new life. And I don't know. All I see is darkness. And this is kind of one of those generic longing cards again. Wait, I'm not paying attention. I guess she technically does not have tears streaming down her face, so she goes in this category. She does. She does. She does. Can't see her, but she does. This is another one of those generic longing cards to a certain extent, but it does still have the specter of that wolf in the background. And here, I don't know what's going on here, because she obviously has fangs herself. Like, she's also been drinking blood, so this might be a consensual situation, but I don't know. So is this guy who's coming in to save, is he going to end up being a victim? I don't really know what's going on here, so whatever. Okay. These are more violence cards. These are some of the more brutal images in this deck. Like this person, her babies have been killed. And she's left holding a cross, and her dress is ripped, so she's probably also been raped. Here we have the fucking Empress, but she does not, she looks paranoid, she looks anxious, she doesn't look okay at all to me. So even the women in power in this deck really don't have power. And here we have someone that's, you know, looking at themselves in the mirror, looking at the damaged person that they have become. And here we have the fucking Nine of Cups is a guy like victorious over the woman that he's just killed in the background. That's what I see. Okay, now we come to this little chunk of cards here. These are all women that I think are somewhat self-assured and somewhat taking control of their own life. So here we have the Moon card. To me, she looks like she's exploring the depths of her situation. I would consider this one to be kind of a neutral. Like, it looks sad. She's definitely got crying eyes, but yeah, I guess this is one that I don't really understand what's going on with that one, to be honest. This one's another one that's very sad. Maybe this is more of a, this should have been in the generic longing category, I guess. This one, we do see a woman of power, but she's the devil. I guess technically no crying eyes on either of these women. Even though this is kind of a situation of the more you struggle, the more you are tied up. I do see her as very fierce. You know, she doesn't look like she's just taking it. She looks like she's gonna fucking figure a way out of that. So I do see that as kind of triumphant, despite the crying eyes. Okay, she doesn't, well, she does still kind of have. This is another scenario of like, maybe this is a continuation of this. After she gets out of these chains, she's just a wild woman. Or out of these ropes. This one's interesting because I see it as kind of a neutral card. In the context of this deck, she's just, this looks actually kind of peaceful. This is, you know, an emaciated woman. Look at her back. Oh my God. But she's getting out of the basement. She's taking control of her life. She's escaping. So you don't see that often in this deck. I guess we'll count this as a not crying card, even though you can't see her face. I don't know what's happening with this High Priestess. She's kind of there. I guess there's sort of like this series of cards in this deck where the women look unhinged. I think these are probably the only three that are like that, truly. Where they look like they might have some power, but the power is coming from just having lost it in this life, you know? Again, this is a queen, Queen of Pentacles, and she's crying. And, you know, she doesn't look paranoid, at least. Queen of Wands, same. Actually, she's not crying. And she doesn't look paranoid or upset. This Three of Wands, she looks like she's going to get out of the attic that she's been imprisoned in. There's a lot of being imprisoned in attics or basement. I mean, I guess this could be a basement. So she's not crying. Another Queen. I guess really it's the Queen of the Queen of Swords was the one that looked all dejected. She looks a little paranoid, a little hypervigilant, but she's not crying. And the Star card looks relatively, you know, it looks like a Star card. I see her as the ultimate, like, transcendence of this deck. Even though she is still crying, even though her boobs are still hanging out of her corset, even though you know she's been through a lot, she has chosen an independent life. She's gotten out. She's not longing for anything, or I don't see this as her longing for anything. I see her as just accepting her reality and choosing to go forward. She's got a crow at her side instead of a dude, because all dudes are evil in the Ludy Lescot world. And yeah, that's the ultimate culmination of the deck, in my opinion, is you just get to this point where you've accepted the reality and now you just have to avoid all men. And I'm really not saying this in terms of like that's how the world is, but that's how this world is. This world of Ludy Lescot, that's how this world exists. Those are the rules in this universe. And unfortunately, we can use the rules in this universe to give us insight into the one that we're in. Unfortunately, that is the case. Okay, so here are the non-crying women in the deck. It's actually, you know, I thought it was only going to be like a handful. It's a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 16, 17, 18 cards in the deck feature women that aren't crying. I mean, more than that, because there's a bunch of images that are just dudes in the deck. So, yeah, okay, I don't know what I'm saying with any of this, but just whenever I come across these realizations, I want to share them with you. That's all. That's all it is. Let's pull some cards, maybe? Do I even want to pull any cards from this deck? Okay, maybe, okay. How would you like to be read? Let's ask the deck. How would you like to be read? So, we've got all these different categories. Men, women that have been abused, women that are distracted and hypervigilant and longing, or women that have actually taken some agency in their own lives. How does this deck want to be seen and interpreted? All right, we're just going to call it these three that popped out right there. Okay, a couple of dudes, and then the woman choosing to acquiesce. The woman accepting her reality as less than in a family of men. And then, yeah, that sort of begrudging acquiescence I see here. I see that here. And it's, you know, men play a role in that too. Like, I don't think he really wants to accept the reality of this life either. he is making this painting because, you know, but he's looking over his shoulder. You know, someone is making him do this. So he has a role in the yuckiness of this. You know, the inequality, it doesn't just affect the people that are under the thumb, you know, it affects everyone. It's not good for anybody. Maybe this kid here doesn't want to be king, and he would rather his older sister take the reins. But that's not the way that it works. And this guy, I think this is like one of the only guys in the deck that looks like he might be sweet. The Page of Cups. He's got the little rabbit in the hat. There's something, I think it's just the body posture makes me think that he's kind of offering this cup. He's kind of ingratiating himself. He's having to go, I mean, in a world that's got a lot of misogyny, dudes have to go an extra mile to prove that they're not one of the bad guys. They have to put in extra effort to gain trust. And this is, unfortunately, a world that we live in. Yeah, anyway. I wasn't trying to make this dark, but I have kind of been in a dark place the last few days, and I haven't really wanted to make a video. I keep putting off my June favorites video because I do have favorites. I do have a lot of things that I enjoyed back in June, but I also just am not in a space to just like show off, you know, things, really. So I'm just sort of in this space of like, I spent almost the entire month of June with Tarot of Vampires and really loving that deck a lot these days. It's like probably crept into my top 5. Which, hey, let's, you know, whatever. This video's already super long. I'll show you guys. My current top 5. I love this bag. Thank you for sending it to me, Wendy. Oh, let's show her other bag. Okay, just because we're doing a current top 5 right here on the end of this video, which means I have to get up to get things. Try not to bump into the tripod on my way back. So here's the other bag that Wendy sent me that she made specifically for my Tarot of Vampires. Isn't it beautiful? Lace, gorgeousness. Love it. Really love it. So, current top 5. Tarot of Vampires. Telesma. Marigold. Do I want to try to get them all in the shot? Take away the Beach Plum LaCroix. Okay, what else is there? Even, I mean, I guess it's probably still on my top 5, but I haven't been using it much lately. And that is Dark Wood Tarot. Really haven't been using it. And, oh yeah, I know what the other one is. Tarot of the Cat People. Because it's been so comforting to me. One of my dogs that I've had for 15 years, she went to college this last month, and I've been having a lot of complicated feelings about, like, and this happens every time, by the way, every time an animal goes to college, I question my ability to be a good pet parent. And Tarot of the Cat People is the voice of my cat soulmate, Max, that I lost 10 years ago. And I have recently realized that I knew that she was with me, like part of my ghost guides and goddesses, but not only is she with me, but she's been with me my entire life. I see her as a guardian angel cat, and she speaks to me in more ways than just through this deck, but primarily whenever I need comfort from Max, I go to Tarot of the Cat People. Which, if you think about it, if I'm now viewing her as my guardian angel cat that's been with me my entire life, and the way that I'm seeing it is she chose to incarnate as a cat in order to hang out with me in person in corporeal form for 20 years, because she was with me from 1991 to 2011. And then she went back to me being my guardian angel, which she was before she incarnated as a cat and after. And what's funny is this is the deck that was gifted to me back in 2018 by a family friend. This deck was gifted to me, and it's what made me finally, for real, learn tarot. This was the start of that journey. So it's like Max was saying, hey, you need to learn tarot. You'll be able to talk to me better. It will be your preferred method of communication with me and other ghost guides and goddesses. And also, I did a thing this last week. Because I had made that sort of realization, I said to Max, okay, if I'm right, and you really are my guardian angel cat, bring me a crow feather. And let me show you. I have this little, do you see this little thing right here? It's a little bundle of 3 crow feathers that I attached to these strings and beads and this little craft bird thing up there. She not only followed through on giving me a crow feather, she brought me to a place, without telling you the whole story, just because it's not that interesting and it's the way that I tell it is so long. But she essentially brought me to a place with like 40 crow feathers, and I took 9 of them home. So yeah, anyway, what is this video? I don't know. It's a lot of babbling. Thank you guys for watching. Cool. Okay, bye.